to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Hello, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Wednesday, January the 15th. I'm your host, Michael Leva, flying solo tonight. As you know, there's some news in the world of Dolphins. We're transitioning to the offseason, so I got a few things I want to talk about. I want to sort of give you guys an update on how this podcast and the website and stuff, well, mainly this podcast is sort of going to go this offseason and when you can expect shows and stuff like that. So there's a lot to talk about on the show. Skyler Thompson went to Pittsburgh, touch on that. The Miami Dolphins obviously need a wide receiver coach and a special teams coordinator. We're going to talk about that. Off-season needs, how they should handle the quarterback situation behind Tua going into 2025, and so much more. So we got a lot to talk about. But before I get to any of that, a quick word from our sponsor.
The DolphinsTalk.com podcast network is sponsored by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a birthday gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive, Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? No worries. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home, and they'll ship it to you. International fans, too. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com, Caneswear.com.
Yes, check out Caneswear if you're in the South Florida area, or if not, and they sell everything South Florida. They sell stuff for the Dolphins. They sell stuff for the Hurricanes, Florida Panthers, Heat, and pretty much all the teams in Florida, but really the South Florida teams. Go to the website, caneswear.com. All right. First, a little bit of housekeeping here. You know, the season ended a couple weeks ago, and in season, we have shows every day of the week. Some days we have multiple shows on a day, and, you know, we got the post-game shows on Sundays, and we have so many shows. Now with the season over, the shows obviously won't be every day, as there's just nothing to talk about. And also, you know, the staff here from everyone from Tom, Ian, Josh, Aaron, Kevin Dern, everyone who does shows, Robert Burns, you know, kind of exhausted. They need a little bit here to recharge the batteries, so to speak. So, you know, we'll have, obviously, yes, we have shows. You're watching one or listening to one right now, but as we pivot to the offseason, to free agency, to the draft, at least for a few weeks, the shows are going to be a little bit more sporadic, as there's really not a ton to talk about unless news breaks like it did last week, obviously, with Wes Welker and Danny Crossman getting fired and stuff like that. Then we have shows. But, yeah, for the next few weeks, you know, everyone's going to recharge the batteries a bit, so you might see less shows unless big news breaks. And we have interesting topics to talk about. One thing I always say about the NFL, this sport wasn't really meant to be covered 365 days a year. And sometimes just having a show to have a show, you get into minutia and the shows get kind of boring and they're kind of pointless and there's kind of a big waste of time. We don't want to do that here with this podcast. We want to, you know, have shows that matter, have shows that are interesting, have shows that have a legitimate topic to talk about and not waste your time. We respect your time too much for that. So that's kind of where we are. I'm still going to have the show with Josh Moser probably most Tuesdays, not every Tuesday, but most Tuesdays. That show's not going anywhere in the off season. I'm going to line up some interviews with some guests, former players, media members, maybe current players even. So we'll have those interviews as well in the next few weeks. And then when we get closer to the draft and free agency, we're really going to hit those two things home. When we get to the draft, we are the podcast to listen to. Trust me, we have the best draft coverage anywhere that you'll find when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. We talk to people who actually know what they're talking about, not a quote-unquote fan who has a board in his spare bedroom. We talk to guys who have either done this or worked for guys who have done this, and by this I mean the draft, or who cover this stuff year round. And, not people who watch YouTube clips and then go act like Mel Kiper. Well, on my board, he was a 4 tight end. Who are you? You work at Valvoline from 9 to 5. You don't have a big board. Okay. It's like, so we have the best draft coverage with the best people who know what they're talking about. Yes, we all have opinions and such, but we give you the best draft coverage concerning the Dolphins. Here's the Miami Dolphins. They don't have a need. Where's a position they don't have a need? Well, that's kind of tough. They got a need everywhere. They don't have a need at whatever position. We're not going to waste time going in-depth and preview a certain position. Now, this year, they kind of have a need at almost every position, so we're probably going to cover every position. But we're going to put more emphasis. We know interior of the offensive line, guards, even center, even probably offensive tackle, because it's not like Patrick Paul's a sure thing at left tackle. We're going to put a ton of time and who's in the draft at offensive tackle. We might spend less time at a position where the need's not so big, like corner. You got Ramsey, Cater, Kohu, and some other guys. Yeah, they have a need at corner, but we might not spend as much time at corner as we do at offensive line, stuff like that. Like I said, in previous years, we haven't even had to cover the quarterbacks. We know Tua, and they were happy with Mike White and stuff. So it's like they're not taking a quarterback here. So we didn't invest time in that, because why waste your time in positions that the Dolphins don't need? Now this year, different story. They kind of need every position, which I'll talk about later on in the show. So yeah, we'll have the best draft coverage anywhere. Trust me, you won't want to miss it, as we will talk to people who know what they're talking about, and not, like I said, some guy who works at Valvoline. On my board, yeah, okay, you're bored. You watch YouTube highlights. You don't have a board. And also, if you want other shows not about the Dolphins from myself, Tom, Josh, Aaron, and others, Dolphins Talk Extra, our Patreon service. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. It's only $3 a month. And you can get other podcasts. Like I drop a pro wrestling show each and every week. I did all season drop a college football show each and every week. I got one more show left to do there. Josh, he started up a music podcast. Myself and Aaron do a reality TV podcast. I'm probably also going to do another television podcast to talk about shows like Landman and stuff like that. That's going to come soon. And yes, we have bonus shows about the Dolphins as well. Don't get me wrong, but if you want more content from us, hearing us talk about non-Miami Dolphin stuff, as I know sometimes it just becomes too much about the Dolphins, and you want a podcast to listen to, but just about any other topic. We'll probably have like NBA coverage, NHL coverage, Major League Baseball coverage when it's warranted, stuff there. So go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. We also have a private message board where only members can chat. You get one-on-one time with myself, Josh, Aaron, and others, and you can talk to other members who are signed up for Dolphins Talk Extra. And we also give out really cool prizes. We have contests where you can win brand new bobblehead dolls, mint in box, autographed jerseys like a Mercury Morris one we did. So sign up for patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. It's $3 a month. It's well worth it. And we have a lot of fun over there. It's a great group we got, and it's growing each and every day. So sign up for that. Okay, let's get on to the show. Skyler Thompson signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers on Tuesday. I'm sorry. The reason he was able to sign is he was on the Miami Dolphins practice squad, and his practice squad contract expired Monday. So because he was not like an active roster, he couldn't sign with anyone. He was on a practice squad, and his contract with the practice squad expired. So Pittsburgh signed him, which is smart for Pittsburgh because Justin Fields, he will be a free agent. And Russell Wilson is also now a free agent. So they don't even have a quarterback on the roster for 2025. Now they have one. And trust me, we know Skyler Thompson. And no Dolphins fans sad that Skyler Thompson is gone. He needed to go. He wasn't going to come back here. And for him, he gets a fresh start. And maybe someone in Pittsburgh can unlock some Skyler Thompson greatness that we never saw. I doubt it. But he is gone. And that leads to what the Miami Dolphins should do at quarterback this offseason. Not talking Tua. We know Tua's the starter. They're not moving on from him, whether you want them to or not. Again, we're not going to insult your intelligence and waste. We will not insult your intelligence and waste your time talking about something that's not going to happen. Tua is your starting quarterback in 2025. But we know the quarterback room overall needs to be fixed. The reason Miami didn't make the playoffs is because they didn't have a competent backup quarterback for when Tua went down. And spoiler alert, Tua always goes down. He had 1 year where he stayed healthy. That's the outlier, not the norm. We live in reality. Tua's going to get hurt again in 2025. So I think in a perfect world, the Dolphins this offseason need to address the quarterback room on a two-prong approach. Tua is your quarterback one. They need a veteran number 2 quarterback, and I would like to see them take a quarterback at some point in the draft. And at some point, I mean, not round 1. So let's just move on from that. They're not taking a quarterback in round 1. But so let's first talk about the veteran backup. There's a bunch of names out there. I'm going to say a couple. You probably heard the names and not going to be shocked by them. None of these names really do anything for me. One of them does, but outside of that, none of them really do. They're going to cost a little money. So Chris Grier and crew are going to have to clear some cap space here and actually invest in the backup quarterback, something they should have done every year, but now they're going to sort of be forced to, we think at least. We hope. If they don't, then it's just hopeless. Andy Dalton is probably the name at the top of the list because there was the report out of the Miami Herald a couple weeks ago that the Dolphins tried to trade for him in September when Tua went down. The Dolphins weren't prepared for that injury, but when it happened, they tried to trade for Dalton. The Panthers said no. And I think the fact that, and it also came out in that report that Miami likes Andy Dalton's skill set and believes he would work well in a Mike McDaniel offense. Now, Dalton this year, when he did play, I think he had one game where he was great. Other than that, it was And he is 39 years old. He's an old man. But I think that's kind of what the Dolphins want, because if Tua goes down, first off, if he goes down to an injury or he's out like 8 or 9 weeks or more, season's over. I don't care who your backup is. But if he's going to have another concussion, and with Tua, every concussion is a minimum 4 weeks. If you think he's ever going to have one, and they'll be like, well, let's just wait a week and see if it's better. It ain't happening. With his history and with the spotlight around it and with the NFL watching over this under a microscope with him because of all the concussions he's had, if he has a concussion, he's going on IR out at least 4 weeks. The Dolphins need someone like Dalton to, try and go 2-2 or 3-1 in those 4 weeks. Can he do it? Depends on the schedule and when it happens, obviously. Can't predict that. But, out of these other names, Joe Flacco, I want nothing to do with. Gardner Minshew, he's the one I want, but he's probably going to cost you $7 or $8 million, and I don't know if they want to pay that. Marcus Mariota, if I were him, I would stay in Washington behind Jayden Daniels and just ride his coattails to retirement. Now, he is from Hawaii. He is from the same general area, I think, as Tua, so there might be a bond there. But so I guess he's in play. I still wouldn't leave Washington if I'm him. Drew Lock, if you only watched the game versus the Colts at the end of the season, you think, well, that's a good pickup. If you watched every other Giants game, he was god-awful. You got Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. Now, I'll say this about Zach Wilson and Mac Jones. I know Jets and Patriots, blah, blah, blah. We hate them. Boo. I get it. Those two guys, and I probably like Zach Wilson a little bit more. It's like you're buying a scratch-off lottery ticket and hoping that they're the next Sam Darnold 2.0, meaning a guy that's failed in his previous spots, and he finally gets to a team in a situation with a coach where he turns it around and looks, like the guy he should have been. Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Sam Darnold were all drafted, top half of round 1. Zach Wilson went number 2. Mac, I forget the exact number, but I don't think he was 3rd, was it? No, but he was in round 1. He was in top half of round 1. Sam Darnold, I think, was 3rd overall. Like, guys who obviously failed with their first stop. Sam Darnold failed he didn't really fail, but he didn't get a great opportunity with like the Panthers or like San Francisco and stuff. Bounced around, gets the Vikings, thrust into action. I know the playoff game wasn't great, but overall, a wise investment for a backup quarterback, because when J.J. McCarthy went down, Sam Darnold did better than good. And I think with Zach and Mac, you're essentially taking a scratch-off lottery ticket, hoping, God forbid, something happens to Tua. Those guys step in and don't play good. They play better than good. Now, with Andy Dalton, you're not getting that. He's 39. You know what you're getting. Flacco, you ain't getting that. At his age, he might be into his 40s. I don't even know. You're not getting that. Mariota, you're not getting that. Minshew, you have a chance of getting it, but it's going to cost you a lot. I think with Zach Wilson or Mac Jones, now I'm not advocating for either because, once again, listen to what I'm saying. I don't care which one of these guys they sign, but they're going to probably sign one of them. Whether it's Zach or Mac, you're taking essentially a scratch off. Or if they have to play a month, they can probably go 2-2, maybe 3-1 if you get lucky. But you're hoping that if they play, there's a chance they go 4-0. If they have to play more than a month, that they play like Sam Darnold did this year in Minnesota. With those other guys, there's no chance of that happening. So that's where I am with the veteran backup quarterback. Again, I really am not advocating for any of these guys. I'm just telling you the pros and cons to, each of them. And there are some other names out there as well. Someone like Kirk Cousins could be out there. Don't know. You can probably get him relatively cheap because of the deal and how it was structured. And there's some other guys, but we'll see. We will see. And then when it comes to the draft, and again, I don't mean round one, but I will say this, and I know some fans won't agree, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with me. Come round two, all bets are off. If the right guy's there. Now, what's the right guy? It's the right guy in the eyes of Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel. I can't speak for them. I can't get in their head. Thank God I can't get in their head. But if the right guy's there in round two, jump on it. And we know, obviously, Ward's probably going to go 1 overall, or if not 1, 2 or 3. Sanders from Colorado's probably going to go, top 5 at some point, maybe even number 2. It is quarterbacks. They get pushed up the board. So you'll probably have quarterbacks go 1-2, especially because the two teams at the top need quarterbacks with Tennessee and Cleveland. So it would make sense if they went 1-2. And if a team did trade up, say a team like the Giants, it's going to be for a quarterback. So odds are those two guys are going to go 1-2. But after that, I don't know if there's another quarterback who will go in round 1. Jalen Milroe would be the one. Again, people are all over the map on him. Some people like his skill set a lot. Some people don't. I'm okay with it. Again, I know some fans of Dolphins don't take another Alabama quarterback. Folks, that stuff doesn't matter. Each one of these guys have their own skill set, and they're independent of each other. That's like saying don't draft an edge rusher from Oregon because of Deion Jordan. It just sounds stupid. So don't say can't take him because he's from Alabama. It doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. But Milroe, I think he's probably going to go in round 1. I think it might be mid to late round 1. I could see end of round 1, one of these teams who has a starting quarterback who may be a little bit older. You know what? Let's take him now. He can sit for a year or 2, and he can play. If not, at the top of round 2, I fully expect him to be gone. I don't think he falls to middle to late round 2, although he could. So he would be the other one. And some of the other names, Quinn Ewers, I know he declared today as I'm recording. Some people like the skill set. Some people hate it. We'll get into that stuff as the offseason goes on. I saw a lot of Texas games this year. Some games you love them. Some games you wonder how this guy even got a scholarship to Texas. So it's very hit or miss, hot and cold. Jackson Dart at Ole Miss reminds me a lot of Will Levis, and mainly because he has so much talent around him that the numbers look great. But there are times where, and he's got a lot of moxie. He's got a little bit of an edge to him. He's got a little bit of a chip on the shoulder. Personality-wise, he's probably the exact opposite of Tua, in my opinion, at least. Again, we'll learn more about him as a person, but he's got a little moxie to him. He's got a little bit of a live arm. Not the tallest, not the strongest, all that stuff. But there is Jackson Dart, Kyle McCord, Syracuse. Again, I'm from Syracuse. I watched every game that he played this year. And outside of the Pitt game and Stanford game, he was fantastic. Now, you watch the Pitt game and Stanford game, if you watch those games, you're going to say, don't touch this guy with a 10-foot pole. Because in the game against Pittsburgh, he threw 5 interceptions. 3 of them were a pick 6. And in the Stanford game, he lost the game by himself with another pick 6 and multiple interceptions there. But other than those 2 games, he was fantastic this year. And his time at Ohio State, again, the Ohio State fans are nuts. He wasn't awful there, but they have unreasonable standards. So Kyle McCord, again, you're probably thinking around 4 or 5, maybe 6 with him. Dylan Gabriel, lefty, Oregon. Size is going to be an issue here, I think, a little bit with him. But those are the guys where look, Miami's got 10 picks. I know they have a ton of needs, which I'm going to talk about here at the end of the show. But for Christ's sakes, you got 10 picks. You're telling me you can't use a pick in round 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 on a quarterback? And no, I'm not taking one thinking he's your long-term answer, your long-term starter. But, we've seen guys, Brock Purdy, get picked at the end of the draft, become great. We've seen guys get picked in the middle rounds, become capable NFL quarterbacks. If we can take a guy in round, 3, 4, 5, and they're they grow into a long-term answer as a backup quarterback starting in 2026. So this year, yeah, you're probably going to have like an Andy Dalton, Joe Flacco type. But the following year, when you move on from them, you got a cheap quarterback on a rookie deal who can be a capable backup quarterback. That's what you need. That's how you manage the salary cap. That's how you build a winning roster. So you're not paying a starter $44 million, $47 million, whatever you're paying Tua, and then you got to spend another 7, 8, 9, 10 million on your number two. No, you want to pay your starter 44, 45, 47 million, whatever it is, and your number two quarterback's making, maybe $1 million, maybe, all depending on which round you get them in. That's how you build a winning roster. So this offseason, get one of the veteran guys and also draft one. Like I said, round 2 on, all bets are off, but probably round 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, you take one. And, you hope you can develop. That's why you're paying Mike McDaniel all this money. That's why you're paying Darrell Bevel all this money. That's why you're paying Frank Smith all this money. Develop the player, and hopefully a year from now, they're a capable number 2. You keep them on the roster this year. They're inactive as a third quarterback. No big deal. So there's that. Assistant coaches, we had the news last week that Danny Crossman, gone. Wes Welker, gone. And I'm not sure if we're all done with the firing of the assistant coaches, but if I had to bet a buck, I'd probably say we are. And I'd say the main reason is they probably, when you announce that, you probably want to announce them all at once. So you only have to issue one press release. That's only out there in the news cycle one day for 24 hours, and everyone forgets about it and moves on. You don't want to do the drip, 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 fire these two on Friday, wait a week and fire this guy, and then wait a few more days and fire that guy. I don't think they want it that way. I think they wanted to sort of just rip the Band-Aid off. Here's who we're firing. Those are the two guys. Goodbye. That's what I think. Now, look, I might be dead wrong. Maybe Mike McDaniel is still talking with the staff, and he decides, you know what? I got to get rid of this guy too. That could happen, and that's fine if it does. It's not a big deal. But I just tend to think we're probably not going to see any more staff changes unless somebody leaves. Like if Weaver obviously leaves, he might take a few guys from the staff with him. If Darrell Bevel gets an offensive coordinator job somewhere, obviously then they have to hire a quarterback's coach. But from pure firings, I don't think we'll see anymore. I don't. Now, special teams coordinator. I know there's been a lot of chatter among Dolphins fans how they want to see Rizzi back as a special teams coordinator. It should be great. I mean, he's one of the best special teams coordinator is in the NFL. He was in Miami for 9 years. Did a fantastic job. Their special teams was always, top half of the league, if not near the top, ranked. But I think we have to be realistic about this. I don't think Rizzi's coming back to Miami because he was here for 9 years. He interviewed for the head coaching job with Chris Grier. He was passed over for Brian Flores. So I doubt he wants to return, work for the general manager, and work for the franchise that did not promote him and make him a head coach. I think he's probably like, if I have options, well, I can go back to the place that, not screwed him over per se, but didn't promote me when I thought I should have been promoted. Or I can go work for this team where it's a fresh start. And I think he'd probably go with a fresh start. So as much as I would love to have him back, and who knows, maybe he will come back. I don't know. It just seems very unlikely Rizzi's going to come back and work for the people that didn't promote him. So there's that. I just hope whatever they do at both of these spots, wide receiver coach and special teams coordinator, hire capable, qualified people. Enough of the hiring of friends. You can't let Mike McDaniel just hire his friends. I don't want, and I know they all do it, so it's not just Mike. I'm not just piling on Mike. Mike worked when he was on the Cleveland staff back in 2013. He worked with this guy on the staff, so he's going to hire him. No. Is he capable? Is he qualified? That's all I want to hear. Same thing when it comes to wide receiver coach. Clearly, we know there was an issue with the wide receivers this year. There was talk and chatter of guys running the wrong routes. There was a lot of drop balls. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, if he's here, is a loose cannon that needs to be controlled, and the head coach can't do it. He admitted it at the press conference. They need a wide receiver coach who ain't going to take any, sorry for swearing, shit and crack the whip. And I don't know who that is. But I hope it's not someone who Mike McDaniel's friends with. When I was in Atlanta, he was also on the staff, so he's my new wide receiver. No, enough of that stuff. Romper room's over. Time for the games is over. We got to have a competent, qualified staff. And I don't care if Mike McDaniel was worked with the guy before or was friends with the guy before. We need capable people for both of these roles. We will see what they do. Special teams, I have no idea what they're going to do. I mean, they could promote the guy who was the assistant special teams coordinator. If they do, I know the fan base will flip out, and they probably should, because they need an experienced guy here. Once again, they need an experienced guy who knows what the hell he's doing. And at wide receiver coach, if the plan is to have Tyreek here next year, you better bring in a ball buster, essentially. Someone who's going to harness that guy as well as develop other young wide receivers, okay, as we haven't seen any development. And I know it's been a lot of injuries to the Eric Ezekamas of the world, River Craycrafts of the world. I know Taj Washington got hurt, so I can't go too hard on him. But Eric Ezekama and River Craycraft, I mean, Eric Ezekama got hurt like in the summer, but he was healthy most of the year. They just didn't elevate him because he wasn't good enough. No development. River obviously missed like the first part of the season with an injury, but once he came back, didn't see any improvement there. Braxton Berrios, I know he got hurt early, but again, when he was out there, did you see anybody improve? Like, where's the development at all with some of these guys? You don't see it. And if you got guys running the wrong routes and such, yeah, something wasn't right in that room. So we'll see who they sign there. It might be a while because I think a lot of these coaches, there's so many head coaching job openings, so many that are open. Guys are going to want to see if they can get a job, in a more stable situation. Like Chicago's going to hire a guy. He's got a runway of 3 or 4 years where if that head coach hires you to be a wide receiver coach there, you ain't got to worry about losing your job. You come into Miami, if they start off 0-5 or if they have another losing season, McDaniel's fired, you're out on your ass and you have to find work in 2026. So some of the guys Mike might be interested in are going to wait to see who the Raiders hire, to see who the Saints hire, to see who the Jets hire, to see who Mike Vrabel puts on his staff. And they might want to go to more stable situations where they're probably going to be safe for 3, 4, 5 years. Or if you're coming to Miami, you're coming into a spot where coach is on a hot seat, so you might not get the best guy or the most qualified guy. So just something to keep an eye on. All right, before I get to my last topic, as always, check out finheaven.com, finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, if you're on Facebook, which I know you are, go to the I Am a Miami Dolphins Fan Facebook page, run by the great and talented Carlos Hernandez. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Podbean, Podchaser, iHeartRadio, Audible, or one of the other hundreds of platforms you're on, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Because, as I said, we're still going to have shows, and there's no set schedule. So when one pops up, you want to be notified on your smart device. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button. Take a minute, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button. Thank you. Okay, last topic, early draft thoughts. And these are early. I'm not going to get into players. I'm getting into what's Miami's thought process heading into this draft. And nothing they do in free agency is going to change the overall thought process in my mind, because when it comes to the draft, there's always two thoughts. Do you go best player available or need? The teams that have the most success usually go best player available. But we also know if you have a need, you got to fill a need, or else what are you doing for the upcoming season? And when you can marry best player available with a need, like what Miami did last year with Chop Robinson, he probably was the highest rated guy on their board, or one of the 2 or 3 highest rated guys on their board, and we need help at edge rusher. We're marrying both. That's a smart pick, and it worked out clearly. But Miami right now going into 2026, I know fans want to win a Super Bowl, and I know fans want to see this team win the AFC East, beat the Bills, win playoff games. I think if you look at this honestly, take off the homer glasses, look at this roster objectively, we are probably 2 to 3 years away from that. I don't think we are in win now mode. Now, Chris Grier is going to say they're in win now mode. Mike McDaniel will say they're in win now mode. Most fans are going to say, we better be in win now mode. We're not, though. This roster, outside of a few, I think is void of a lot of talent. You look at defense alone, outside of Ramsey, Zach Sealer, Chop Robinson, Jordan Brooks, I'll throw in. I mean, what do you got on defense? Yes, Jaylen Phillips if he comes back healthy. But that's a big if. I mean, you got holes everywhere. You have no safeties you can count on. You have outside of Jordan Brooks, no linebackers that put the fear of God in anyone. Your line outside of Zach Sealer there's just nothing there. That's just one side of the ball. The wide receiver, you got two guys. One of them's a lunatic. You have only one quarterback who's always hurt. Offensive line is a mess. Running back's okay, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, there's so many holes on this roster to think with one free agency class where they have very little money to spend and they have to make money, and one draft, you're going to be like win now mode next year where you're going to be out there competing with the Bills and Ravens. It's not happening. So because if you're objective about this, and I know some fans won't agree, that's okay. You don't always have to agree. I think you got to go into this draft. I don't care what you do in free agency, best player available. And if that means I saw one mock draft today in round 2 hit Miami taking a tight end, and fans lost their freaking mind. How can you take a tight end in round 2 when we got all these? I'll tell you why. This team right now needs as many good players as possible. Be damned the position. You beggars can't be choosers. Right now, the Dolphins' talent floor. In 2023, the talent level was extremely high. I made the case, aside from the Chiefs and the Eagles in and maybe San Francisco, the Dolphins had the most talented roster in 2023. One of the top 3 or 4 talented rosters in 2023. They probably had more talent than the Chiefs, actually. It's just that the Chiefs have Mahomes and a smart head coach in Reed, and they can overcome it. That when you got like guys like Wilkins, and you had all the safeties, and you had Howard and Ramsey, and you were just loaded with talent. Connor Williams, when he was healthy, obviously Robert Hunt. They had so much talent in 2023 that they're one of the most talented rosters in the league. Obviously, they lost a bunch of guys, never really replaced them. And now heading into next year, they're going to lose more. I don't know what's going on with Holland, and who knows what's going to go on with Chubb and Armstead. These are guys who might not be here. This roster needs an infusion of really talented players. I don't care what position they play right now. Now, again, if I'm running the draft, could I take a tight end in round 2? Probably not. I'd probably see if there's someone else who's equally as talented, rated on, their board, who like around the same area, who might fill a need at guard, linebacker, corner, and look for that. Yes. But overall, they need to be in best player available mode and not worry so much about trying to win the Super Bowl in 2025, because I think that's really unrealistic, because you look at what they need. I don't know what they're going to do with Holland, but either way, if they keep him or not, they need 2 to 3 safeties. Jordan Poyer's not coming back. Patrick McMorris is an unknown. Campbell is just a special teams guy, not really a safety. Marcus May, they cut for some unknown reason, makes 0 sense to me. They need 2 to 3 safeties alone. They need 2 cornerbacks at least, because Kendall Fuller probably ain't going to be here. 3 linebackers. Long was cut. Walker, even if he stays, is always hurt. Tyrell Dotson, if he stays, he's a backup. He's not. They need at least 3 linebackers. Nose tackle, they have none. They need 1 to 2. And Calais Campbell, he's probably going to retire, or he's going to sign with a team with a chance to win. You need 1 to 2 defensive ends. That's just defense. Offense, you need 3 guards, 2 starters, and someone to be a backup. You need 1 offensive tackle if Patrick Paul starts, and you got Dawson Jackson on the other. God forbid they get hurt. You need a swing tackle. Obviously, we know about the number 2 quarterback, and even if we do sign a veteran, you want to probably take a young guy at some point. And they need at least 1 wide receiver to be a number 3 behind Hill and Waddle. And if Hill's gone, then you probably need at least 2 wide receivers, someone to start and someone to be number. They have a ton of needs. So that's why in this draft, I see some fans going, round 1, better be an offensive lineman. Round 2, better be a pass rusher, better be a safety. I don't care the position. Just draft great players, the highest rated players, the guys who have the metrics off the charts, the guys when you interview them, football's in their blood's in their heart, and they want to fight for every inch of the field, every yard. Give me as many of those guys, because guess what? We have needs everywhere. Not a running back. We don't have a need there. Not a running back. Tight end, I wouldn't put a lot of emphasis on, because we still have Jonnu for a year, and you can get a number 2 tight end elsewhere. So, yes, there are a couple areas where I would deviate from this, but for the most part, your trenches, go crazy. Offensive line, defensive line. You want another edge rusher? Probably need one. Go crazy. Middle linebacker, outside linebacker, go crazy. Safety, corner, go nuts. Wide receiver, go. If they took a wide receiver in round 1, I know fans would go crazy. Wouldn't be a terrible pick if the guy's like a sure thing. I wouldn't do it, but wouldn't be wouldn't be the worst thing. Give me the highest rated players because this roster needs talent. It doesn't, if you just go to fill needs, like, okay, now we're going to reach on an offensive guard in round 2, but we're going to pass on 2 great receivers, 1 great linebacker, and a safety. Why? Because you just have to get a guard. We'll figure out the guard part, okay? Just give me the best players, period. And that's how I see this roster. Not hating, just stating. Again, you don't have to agree. Some might see this roster as, it's really, really good. I don't see that. I just see a bunch of holes, and where I see spots where we have a bunch of old men. We need a lot of youth and talent, and that's what I would do with 10 picks. Best player. Don't even worry less about the position because I don't think they're going to win anything of substance in 2025. Just being honest, I think, I know last year they said it's a reset, it's a pause year. I really think 2025 is like a rebuild year. Honestly, I do. They'll never say it because they want your money. They want to fool you, the fans. They want to lie to you to buy tickets, buy merchandising, put money in their wallets. But if you look at this in reality, watch the games last weekend, watch the games this weekend. Do you think this team is anywhere near the Bills, the Ravens, the Philadelphia Eagles, even the Washington Commanders? Like, they would mop the floor with us. We do not have the talent to compete with these teams, and we just need as many good players as possible. And BPA all the way. And if that means wide receiver in round 1, go for it. If that means linebacker in round 1, go for it. Every pick doesn't have to be an offensive lineman in round 1 or 2. I'm just sorry it doesn't. Now, if one is there, jump on it because that's clearly a huge need. But don't, reach on one when there's other players with higher grades, higher marks who might be more of a sure thing long term. That's all I'm saying. Best player available because we literally have needs at every position other than running back. So let's build up this roster and get some talent. All right, that's all for today's show. Thank you all for listening. Check out the website, DolphinsTalk.com, for all the latest news, rumors, original commentary. Also, Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. It's the best $3 you'll spend. Trust me. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk, and on all social media, including TikTok until they shut it down, at DolphinsTalk. Everyone have a great Wednesday evening. Have a great Thursday. We'll talk to you again after a while. Folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.